Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood on the bridge of the UEN Defiance and watched the sky above Earth turn dark. The massive alien ships appeared one by one through tiers in space itself. Each vessel was the size of a city and gleamed like polished metal under the sun. There were hundreds of them, and more kept coming. The Caltharian Empire had arrived, and they brought death with them. The bridge crew worked in silence around him. Lieutenant Soo-jin Ryu monitored the sensor readings while Commander Jae-sung-oh coordinated with the other human ships. Everyone knew what this meant. The Empire had come to make Earth surrender or destroy it completely. Yun-woo had fought in the border wars against pirates and rebels, but nothing had prepared him for this. The alien fleet stretched across the sky like a metal ocean. Each ship carried enough firepower to crack a moon in half. The entire human navy had only 200 ships, and most of them were smaller than a single Caltharian destroyer. On Luna Station, Captain So-young Lee watched the same terrible sight through her command center windows. She controlled Earth's orbital defense platforms and knew exactly how useless they would be against this armada. The defense grid had been built to stop asteroid impacts and small raiding fleets. It was not designed to fight the most powerful military force in the galaxy. So-young activated her communicator and spoke to her team. The defense platforms would need to coordinate with the fleet, even though everyone knew it would not matter. The aliens had conquered 17 civilizations before Earth. They had perfected the art of making worlds submit. Far below on Earth's surface, Ambassador Tae-min Park sat in the United Earth Council chambers. The massive viewing screen showed the alien fleet in all its terrible glory. The council members whispered among themselves, but Tae-min knew they were all thinking the same thing. How do you negotiate with beings who could destroy your entire world without breaking stride? The alien message came exactly 1 hour after their arrival. The transmission appeared on every screen on Earth and every human ship in space. The creature, speaking, had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its elongated skull. Its skin was gray like old metal, and its voice carried the weight of absolute authority. This was Emperor Vexthul himself, the being who ruled over 1,000 worlds and commanded fleets that could darken entire star systems. He spoke in perfect human language, though his mouth barely moved. Primitive inhabitants of the third planet, he began, you have been selected for incorporation into the Caltharian Empire. Your world possesses resources that will serve our greater purpose. Your species will be granted the honor of serving those who are your superiors in every way. The Emperor paused, and his 4 eyes seemed to look directly through the screen at everyone watching. You have 72 of your planetary rotations to signal your complete surrender. All military vessels will power down their weapons. All defensive installations will deactivate. Your leaders will present themselves for processing. Any resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your world. Tae-min felt his hands shake as the message continued. The Emperor explained how Earth's population would be sorted into useful and non-useful categories. The useful ones would be relocated to work camps on other worlds. The non-useful ones would be eliminated to prevent future problems. Do not mistake this for a negotiation, the Emperor said with something that might have been amusement. This is an inevitability. 17 civilizations have stood where you stand now. 17 civilizations have learned that resistance to the Empire is futile. You may choose to learn this lesson the easy way or the hard way. The choice is yours. But the outcome is not. The transmission ended, and the council chamber fell into complete silence. President Chang Ho-yoon stood slowly from his chair. His face was pale, but his voice was steady when he spoke. Contact all department heads, he said quietly. We need to discuss our options. But everyone in the room knew there were no real options. Earth's military could not fight the Empire and win. The aliens had weapons and technology that humans could barely understand. Their ships moved faster than anything Earth had ever built. Their energy shields could stop nuclear weapons like raindrops. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, Dr. Ji-ho Nam stared at rows of monitors showing the alien fleet. His laboratory was filled with equipment that officially did not exist. For 10 years, he had worked on projects that consumed Earth's secret military budget. Projects that governments around the world pretended were just research into clean energy and space exploration. Dr. Yunji Song worked beside him running calculations on her quantum computer. The numbers streaming across her screen represented the culmination of decades of hidden work. Work that had begun the moment Earth's deep space monitors detected the first signs of alien civilization in the galaxy. "Are we ready?" Jiho asked quietly. Yunji nodded without looking away from her screen. "The calculations are complete. All the hidden facilities are online. The shipyards in the ocean trenches are fully operational. The construction platforms in the asteroid belt are ready to begin production." Jiho activated a secure communication channel that connected him to similar facilities around the world. On his screen appeared the faces of engineers and scientists who had spent their lives preparing for this day. They had known the aliens would come eventually. Earth's radio signals had been broadcasting into space for over a century. Any advanced civilization would eventually notice them and investigate. The plan they had developed was unprecedented in galactic history, not because it was impossible, but because no species had ever been desperate enough to attempt it. It required patience that spanned decades. It required deception on a scale that involved entire governments. Most importantly, it required the complete sacrifice of Earth's apparent military strength to convince the aliens that humans were exactly as primitive as they appeared to be. Engineer Minseo Zhang reported from the underwater shipyards in the Yate Pacific Ocean. "Construction teams are ready to begin full production. We can have the first squadron completed within 6 months." Chief Engineer Dong-hyun Shin spoke from his position in the asteroid belt. "The hidden facilities are undetected. The Empire's scans are reading our installations as natural rock formations. We can begin assembly of the heavy units immediately." The irony was not lost on any of them. While the Empire threatened Earth with total destruction for resisting a force that appeared overwhelmingly superior, humanity had been preparing to resist a force that actually was overwhelmingly superior. The difference was that humans had been planning this war for 30 years, while the Empire expected another easy conquest. President Chang Ho-yoon arrived at the mountain facility within hours of the alien ultimatum. He moved through the hidden corridors that led to the deepest levels where Earth's most classified projects waited. General Hee-jin Choi met him at the entrance to the command center. "Is everything ready?" the president asked. "Everything," she confirmed. "The surface military will play their part perfectly. Admiral Kim knows what he needs to do. Captain Lee will make the orbital defenses look exactly as weak as they actually are. The aliens will see exactly what they expect to see." The president nodded and entered the command center where the real war would be planned. The war that would begin with Earth's apparent surrender and end with something the Empire had never imagined possible. The wall screens showed the alien fleet maintaining perfect formation above Earth. They looked exactly like conquerors who had never known defeat. In 72 hours, Earth would surrender completely, and the Empire would begin their occupation. They would establish their military bases and administrative centers. They would begin cataloging Earth's resources and sorting its population. They would do everything according to their standard procedures because those procedures had worked perfectly on 17 other worlds. What they would not know was that Earth's surrender would be the opening move in the greatest deception in galactic history. The surrender ceremony took place exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum. President Chang Ho-yoon stood in the United Earth Council chamber wearing his finest formal uniform. The document on the table before him contained Earth's complete and unconditional surrender to the Caltharian Empire. Every word had been carefully chosen to give the aliens exactly what they expected to receive. Ambassador Tae-min Park stood beside the president as cameras broadcast the historic moment to every human settlement in the solar system. The message was simple and clear. Earth could not fight the Empire and would not try. Humanity accepted its fate and would cooperate fully with their new masters. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim watched the ceremony from his flagship bridge. When the president signed the surrender document, Hyunwoo gave the order that felt like betraying everything he had sworn to protect. The human fleet powered down their weapons systems and prepared to be boarded by Caltharian inspection teams. Captain So-young Lee followed similar orders from Luna Station. The orbital defense platforms went dark one by one until Earth appeared completely defenseless. She transmitted the surrender codes that gave the aliens complete access to human communication networks and defense systems. The Caltharian response was swift and efficient. Within hours of the surrender, Commander Zexmiran arrived on Earth's surface with the first wave of occupation forces. His transport ship landed in the center of what had been Washington, D.C. Alien soldiers in powered armor spread out through the city, establishing checkpoints and security zones. Zexmiran was typical of Caltharian military officers. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 eyes that missed nothing. His uniform was black with silver markings that showed his rank and experience. He had overseen the occupation of 6 worlds before Earth and knew exactly how to break the spirit of a conquered people. The commander established his headquarters in the former United Nations building. Human officials were summoned to receive their orders. They would continue to govern their own people, but only within limits set by the Empire. Any disobedience would result in immediate punishment for entire populations. President Chang Ho-yoon attended the first meeting with the Occupation Authority. He sat quietly while Zexmiran explained how Earth would be integrated into the Empire. Mining operations would extract useful metals and minerals. Agricultural regions would grow food for other imperial worlds. The human population would provide labor for projects throughout the galaxy. The president asked careful questions about how his people would be treated. Zexmiran answered with the cold efficiency of someone who had given the same explanations many times before. Humans who cooperated would live. Those who resisted would die. It was that simple. Intelligence Chief Kolthis arrived 2 weeks after the initial occupation. His job was to identify potential resistance movements before they could organize. He studied reports on human psychology and history prepared by imperial analysts. According to their research, humans were emotional and unpredictable, but ultimately weak when faced with superior force. Kolthis established monitoring stations throughout major population centers. Imperial technology could detect weapons caches and secret communications. Surveillance drones tracked movement patterns and identified suspicious gatherings. Within a month, the intelligence network covered most of inhabited Earth. But something felt wrong to the experienced intelligence officer. The human surrender had been too complete and too quick. Most species showed some signs of underground resistance even after official capitulation. There were always military units that refused orders or civilian groups that tried to organize opposition. Earth showed none of these normal patterns. The human military had surrendered exactly as ordered. Admiral Kim and his officers reported regularly to imperial authorities and provided complete access to their vessels and installations. Captain Lee had turned over all defense codes and technical specifications without protest. Every human military base was now under Caltharian control. Kolthis shared his concerns with Commander Zexmiran during their weekly briefing. The occupation was proceeding too smoothly. Human cooperation was too perfect. Either this species was naturally more submissive than their psychological profile suggested, or something else was happening. Zexmiran dismissed the concerns with typical military confidence. The Empire had overwhelming superiority in every category that mattered. Even if humans were planning some kind of resistance, they lacked the technology and resources to pose any real threat. Their weapons were primitive and their ships were slow and clumsy compared to Imperial vessels. The commander was more interested in maximizing resource extraction than worrying about imaginary threats. Earth was rich in metals that other Imperial worlds needed. The oceans contained vast quantities of water that could be shipped to desert planets. The human population could provide skilled labor if properly managed. 6 months into the occupation, the integration appeared complete. Emperor Vexthul himself visited Earth to inspect the newest addition to his domain. His massive flagship dominated the sky above the former United States as he toured the most important facilities. The Emperor met with President Chang Ho-yoon in a ceremony designed to demonstrate complete human submission. Chang Ho knelt before the alien ruler and formally requested permission for his people to serve the Empire. Vexthul graciously granted this request and praised the humans for their wisdom in accepting imperial authority. But far beneath the ceremony and the apparent submission, something else was happening. Dr. Jiho Nam worked 18-hour days in his hidden laboratory coordinating construction projects across the solar system. The alien occupation had provided perfect cover for activities that would have been impossible to hide during peacetime. Engineer Min Seo Jang supervised massive, underwater shipyards that the aliens had never detected. Construction teams worked around the clock building vessels unlike anything in known galactic history. The ships were not designed for speed or elegance. They were designed for one specific purpose that no previous civilization had ever attempted. The key breakthrough had come from Dr. Yoon Ji Song's research into extreme environment engineering. Human ships were being built to operate in conditions that would destroy any other known technology. They could function in the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres. They could survive in the corrosive environments around certain types of stars. Most importantly, they could hide in places where no conventional military force would ever think to look. Chief Engineer Dong Hyun Shin reported daily from construction facilities hidden throughout the asteroid belt. What appeared to be natural rock formations were actually sophisticated manufacturing centers. Imperial scans read them as lifeless asteroids, but inside them thousands of workers assembled components for the largest fleet in galactic history. The genius of the plan lay in its use of the aliens' own expectations against them. The Empire expected conquered worlds to attempt resistance using conventional military tactics. They watched for hidden weapons caches and secret training facilities. They monitored communications for signs of rebellion and coordinated attacks. What they did not expect was a resistance that had been planned before first contact. A resistance that had spent decades developing technology specifically designed to fight a superior alien force. A resistance that was willing to accept complete surrender and total occupation as the opening moves in a war that would not begin until years after defeat. Commander Jae Sung-oh trained volunteer crews in facilities that existed inside hollowed-out asteroids. The men and women who would crew humanity's secret fleet learned to operate in conditions that violated every known principle of safe space travel. They practiced maneuvers in gravitational fields that would crush normal ships. They learned to use the galaxy's most dangerous environments as tactical advantages. President Chang Ho-yoon met regularly with resistance leaders in locations the aliens would never search. General Hye-jin Choi commanded ground forces that existed only on paper, while Captain Woo Jin-baek organized supply networks that moved resources through systems the Empire considered impossible to navigate. The most difficult part was maintaining the pretense of complete defeat while secretly building the tools of ultimate victory. Every human who knew the truth had to act perfectly in their assigned role. Military officers had to convincingly appear broken and submissive. Government officials had to seem genuinely grateful for Imperial guidance. Citizens had to behave like a conquered people while secretly supporting the greatest military buildup in human history. Intelligence Officer Young Soo Han spent his days analyzing Imperial communication networks and mapping their military deployments. The aliens' own confidence worked against them as they transmitted detailed information about fleet positions and strategic plans without bothering to encrypt communications they assumed humans could never intercept or understand. After 6 months of occupation, Commander Zex Miran felt confident enough to reduce the size of his garrison. Earth appeared completely pacified and Imperial rule was firmly established. The human population had accepted their new status and was working productively, in service to the Empire. What Zexamiran did not know was that Earth's surrender had given humanity exactly what they needed most. The first year of occupation passed without major incident. Commander Zexamiran filed regular reports to Emperor Vexthul describing the successful integration of Earth into the Imperial system. Mining operations exceeded projected quotas while the human population remained cooperative and productive. From the Empire's perspective, Earth had become a model of efficient conquest and administration. But beneath the surface of apparent submission, the greatest military deception in galactic history continued to unfold. Dr. Jiho Nam coordinated construction projects that spanned the entire solar system while maintaining the appearance of a defeated scientist working on approved research projects for his alien masters. The breakthrough that made everything possible had come from Dr. Yoon Ji Song's work on what she called adaptive environmental engineering. Human technology was being designed to function in conditions that would instantly destroy conventional spacecraft. The ships taking shape in hidden facilities could operate in the corona of stars where temperatures reached millions of degrees. They could survive in the crushing gravity wells near black holes where space itself bent and twisted. Captain So-Young Lee commanded the first completed vessel from the secret shipyards. The Soul's Vengeance appeared to be nothing more than a modified cargo hauler when Imperial inspectors examined its exterior. The aliens saw obsolete human technology barely capable of moving between planets in the same system. What they could not detect were the revolutionary systems hidden within its hull. The ship's power core used principles that violated known physics according to Imperial science. Its hull was constructed from materials that became stronger under extreme stress rather than weaker. Most importantly, its engines could accelerate to speeds that made it invisible to conventional sensors while generating no detectable energy. Signature. Chief Engineer Dong-Hyun Shin supervised the construction of increasingly ambitious vessels in facilities hidden throughout the asteroid belt. What the Empire's long-range scans identified as lifeless rocks were actually massive shipyards, producing vessels that dwarfed anything in the Imperial Navy. Each ship incorporated decades of research into technologies the aliens had never imagined possible. The largest vessels under construction were designed for a single purpose that no military strategist in galactic history had ever attempted. They would serve as mobile command centers capable of coordinating fleet actions across multiple star systems simultaneously while remaining completely hidden from enemy detection. Engineer Min Seo Jang worked from ocean floor facilities that stretched across entire continental shelves. The underwater shipyards produced smaller vessels designed for specific tactical roles, fast attack ships that could accelerate through gas giant atmospheres, stealth vessels that could approach targets through the radiation fields around pulsars, electronic warfare platforms that could disrupt Imperial communications from inside star coronas. The key to the entire operation was humanity's willingness to accept conditions that other species considered absolutely impossible. Human crews trained to operate their ships in environments where the slightest mistake meant instant death. They learned to navigate through gravitational anomalies that would tear apart conventional vessels. They practiced combat maneuvers in the hearts of gas giants where atmospheric pressure could crush mountains. Commander Jae-sung oversaw training operations that took place in the most dangerous locations in the solar system. Volunteer crews practiced formation flying through the radiation belts of Jupiter. They learned to coordinate attacks while hiding in the magnetic field distortions around Saturn. Most importantly, they mastered the art of using the galaxy's most hostile environments as tactical advantages rather than obstacles. The philosophy behind human military doctrine was completely alien to Imperial thinking. Caltharian forces relied on overwhelming technological superiority and perfect coordination in controlled environments. Human forces were being trained to thrive in chaos and turn apparent disadvantages into crushing advantages. Intelligence Officer Young Soo-han mapped Imperial communication networks and identified critical vulnerabilities in their command structure. The aliens' confidence in their own superiority made them careless about security. They transmitted detailed fleet movements and strategic plans using encryption that human quantum computers could break in minutes. More importantly, the Empire's rigid hierarchy made them predictable. Imperial commanders followed established procedures that had worked for centuries of conquest. They concentrated their forces at strategic points and maintained supply lines that connected their scattered holdings. This predictability would become their greatest weakness when humanity finally revealed its true capabilities. President Chang Ho-yoon maintained his role as Earth's submissive leader while secretly coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. His meetings with Imperial administrators provided perfect cover for communications with resistance cells scattered throughout human space. Every conversation was carefully monitored by alien surveillance, but the real messages were hidden in coded references that appeared to be routine administrative discussions. General Hye-jin Choi organized ground forces that existed only as lists of names in classified databases. The soldiers who would liberate Earth when the time came were currently working in Imperial facilities and serving on alien ships. They had been placed in their positions deliberately to provide intelligence and sabotage capabilities when the shooting started. The most dangerous part of the deception was maintaining perfect operational security while coordinating activities across dozens of hidden facilities. Every person involved in the resistance had to play their assigned role flawlessly while secretly working toward humanity's ultimate revenge against their alien oppressors. Dr. Yoonji Song's greatest achievement was solving the power generation problem that had limited previous attempts at large-scale fleet construction. Her fusion reactors could operate using materials that were common throughout the galaxy, but required manufacturing processes that only human technology could achieve. This breakthrough made it possible to build and maintain a fleet larger than anything the Empire had ever assembled. The timing of the operation required precise coordination between hundreds of different elements. Construction had to be completed according to schedules that allowed for Imperial inspection tours and routine surveillance sweeps. Personnel had to be moved into position without creating patterns that might alert alien intelligence services. Most critically, the final assault had to begin at exactly the right moment to achieve maximum strategic surprise. Captain Wu Jin-Beck commanded resistance cells that had infiltrated every major Imperial facility on Earth. His people worked as maintenance technicians and administrative assistants while secretly gathering intelligence and preparing for coordinated sabotage operations. When the rebellion began, they would strike simultaneously at communication centers and military installations across the planet. The Empire's greatest mistake was assuming that human psychology followed the same patterns as other conquered species. Previous civilizations had attempted resistance using conventional military tactics that Imperial forces were designed to counter. Humans were planning something that had never been tried before because no previous species had been desperate enough or patient enough to attempt it. Intelligence. Chief Colthus continued to file reports expressing concern about the unusual patterns he observed in human behavior. The occupied population was too cooperative and too efficient in their service to Imperial goals. But his warnings were dismissed by commanders who saw only a successful occupation and productive resource extraction. The aliens' own bureaucratic procedures worked against them. Success was measured by quotas and efficiency ratings that encouraged local commanders to report positive results regardless of underlying realities. The Empire's vast size made detailed oversight impossible, so each occupied world was essentially left to manage itself as long as it met production targets. Commander Zex Miran received commendations for his administration of Earth while remaining completely unaware that his every movement was monitored by the Resistance. His daily routine was mapped and analyzed by human intelligence officers who knew exactly where he would be at any given moment. The alien commander had become a prisoner of his own success. The final phase of preparation began exactly 18 months after Earth's surrender. Admiral Hyun Woo Kim received coded orders that activated sleeper agents throughout the Imperial fleet. Human technicians who had been working on alien ships for over a year began installing small modifications that would prove critical when the shooting started. The modifications were so subtle that Imperial security scans could not detect them. A circuit board here and a software update there gradually transformed the Empire's own vessels into weapons that could be turned against their crews at exactly the right moment. The aliens were unknowingly helping to prepare for their own destruction. Dr. Ji-Ho Nam transmitted the final authorization codes that brought humanity's secret fleet to full operational status. Across the solar system, hundreds of ships that had never appeared on any official registry prepared for combat operations that would redefine warfare throughout the galaxy. The ceremony marking the second anniversary of Earth's surrender was scheduled to be the Empire's greatest triumph. Emperor Vexthul arrived with the Grand Fleet to celebrate the successful integration of humanity into Imperial society. Over 500 Caltharian warships filled the space around Earth in a display of power designed to remind the galaxy that resistance to the Empire was futile. President Chang Ho-yoon stood at the podium in the former United Nations building preparing to deliver what the aliens expected would be a speech of gratitude and submission. The ceremony was being broadcast throughout Imperial space as an example of proper conquest and administration. Representatives from dozens of species watched to see how completely humans had accepted their fate. Commander Zex Miran sat in the front row wearing his dress uniform decorated with medals for successful pacification operations. Beside him, Intelligence Chief Colthus monitored security feeds from throughout the building. The anniversary celebration represented 2 years of perfect occupation, without a single significant incident of resistance. Emperor Vexthul himself waited in his command ship high above Earth's surface. The alien ruler planned to accept tribute from the conquered world before moving on to inspect other imperial holdings. Earth had become so successfully integrated that it barely required his personal attention anymore. President Chang Ho-yoon began his speech exactly as scheduled. His opening words praised imperial wisdom and thanked the aliens for bringing civilization to primitive humanity. The audience of human officials and alien administrators listened as he described the benefits Earth had received from imperial rule. But something subtle began to change in the president's tone and word choice. What started as expected praise for the empire gradually transformed into something else entirely. The words remained respectful, but their meaning shifted in ways that careful listeners began to notice. When we speak of humanity's surrender, the president said slowly, we must remember that surrender can take many different forms. Sometimes what appears to be submission is actually the opening move in a much larger game. Commander Zex Miran shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The human leader's words remained within acceptable bounds, but something about his delivery suggested hidden meanings that made the alien officer nervous. President Chang Ho-yoon continued speaking as hidden signals transmitted throughout Earth, and beyond triggered activation sequences that had been waiting for exactly this moment. In facilities scattered across the solar system, automated systems began powering up equipment that had remained dormant for months. The Empire taught us valuable lessons about patience and strategic thinking, the president said with a slight smile. We learned that sometimes the best way to win a war is to convince your enemy that no war is taking place. Dr. Jiho Nam sat in his hidden command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching status indicators turn green one by one. Project Shadowfall's final phase was beginning exactly as planned. Across the solar system, humanity's secret fleet was coming online for the first time at full operational capacity. The first sign that something was wrong came from Imperial sensor stations monitoring the outer solar system. Technicians reported unusual energy readings from what should have been empty space near the orbit of Neptune. Long-range scans showed nothing, but the readings continued to strengthen as if massive objects were approaching at impossible speeds. Intelligence Chief Kolthis received the reports and immediately activated emergency protocols. His security teams began searching for signs of hidden weapons or sabotage devices, but found nothing unusual. The energy readings seemed to be coming from space itself rather than any specific location on Earth. Captain So-young Lee activated her ship's true capabilities for the first time since construction. The Soul's Vengeance had been orbiting Earth disguised as a cargo hauler for 8 months, while Imperial inspectors regularly examined its apparently primitive systems. Now its real nature was finally revealed as systems that violated known physics powered up and began generating energy signatures that Imperial sensors had never encountered. The second wave of anomalous readings came from the direction of Jupiter. Imperial monitoring stations detected massive gravitational disturbances in the gas giant's atmosphere as objects the size of battleships accelerated out of the crushing depths where no conventional technology could survive. The shapes appearing on sensors were unlike anything in known starship design. Emperor Vexthul was informed of the situation as his command ship maintained position above Earth. The alien ruler dismissed initial reports as sensor malfunctions or natural phenomena. No primitive species could hide military assets from Imperial detection systems. The technology required simply did not exist at humanity's level of development. But the readings continued to multiply and strengthen. Objects were emerging from locations throughout the solar system that Imperial science considered absolutely uninhabitable. Ships appeared to be launching from inside stellar coronas and accelerating through radiation fields that should have instantly destroyed any known materials. President Chang Ho-yoon reached the climax of his speech as the first elements of humanity's secret fleet became visible to Imperial sensors. Today marks not the anniversary of our surrender, he declared, but the revelation of our greatest deception. What you interpreted as submission was actually preparation for this moment. The sky above Earth began to darken as ships emerged from hiding places that had kept them invisible for years. They rose from ocean trenches and descended from asteroid belt installations. They appeared from behind planetary rings and accelerated out of gas giant atmospheres. Most impossibly, they emerged directly from the corona of the sun itself, trailing plasma fields that should have vaporized any known technology. Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship Terra's Fury as it rose from its hiding place, in the crushing depths of Jupiter's atmosphere. The massive vessel had been constructed inside the gas giant, using materials and techniques that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Its hull incorporated technologies that turned the planet's lethal environment into a source of power and protection. The Black Fleet numbered in the thousands rather than hundreds. Each ship represented capabilities that the Empire had never imagined possible. They could operate in environments that conventional military doctrine considered absolute barriers to movement. They could generate power levels that exceeded Imperial heavy cruisers while maintaining complete stealth in normal space. Commander Zexamiran activated emergency communication protocols trying to contact the Imperial fleet in orbit. But his transmissions were being intercepted and blocked by electronic warfare systems that had been hidden throughout Earth's communication network for over a year. The aliens found themselves isolated and cut off from their command structure at the worst possible moment. Dr. Yoon-ji Song monitored the fleet's emergence from her control station as thousands of ships that had never appeared on any registry revealed themselves simultaneously. The coordination required was staggering, but every element activated exactly on schedule. Years of preparation and hidden construction culminated in a display of military power that transformed humanity from conquered victims to apex predators. The Empire's response was swift but confused. Caltharian ships began moving to combat positions, but their commanders had no experience fighting an enemy that emerged from impossible locations using incomprehensible technology. Imperial doctrine assumed control of orbital space and predictable enemy movements. Human forces violated every assumption about proper military engagement. Captain Woo Jin Baek led the first wave of ground operations as his resistance cells struck Imperial installations across Earth simultaneously. Alien communication centers went dark as carefully placed charges destroyed equipment that had been sabotaged months earlier. Command bunkers found themselves isolated as human technicians who had worked alongside aliens for years revealed their true loyalties. The battle for orbital space began as Captain So-Young Lee's ship engaged the nearest Imperial destroyer. The alien vessel opened fire with weapons that had conquered 17 civilizations, but found its energy beams deflected by defensive systems that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. The Soul's Vengeance returned fire with weapons that channeled stellar plasma through artificial magnetic fields. Commander Jae Sung-oh led the second wave of ships emerging from the asteroid belt. His squadron had been hiding inside Hollowed Outrocks for 18 months while Imperial patrols passed within scanning range without detecting anything unusual. Now they revealed their true nature as advanced warships designed specifically to counter Imperial technology and tactics. The sky above Earth went completely black as more ships continued to emerge from hiding places throughout the solar system. The Black Fleet didn't just outnumber the Imperial forces. It represented a complete revolution in military technology and strategic thinking that transformed every assumption about space warfare. Emperor Vex Thul watched in growing horror as his supposedly invincible fleet found itself surrounded and outgunned by enemies that had appeared from nowhere. The primitive species that had surrendered without a fight 2 years earlier was revealing military capabilities that exceeded anything in Imperial. The battle for Earth became a demonstration of everything the Empire had never imagined possible. Admiral Hyun-woo Kim coordinated the Black Fleet from his flagship as human forces systematically dismantled the Imperial Armada using tactics that violated every known principle of space warfare. Ships that had been hiding in stellar coronas emerged with weapons powered by the fusion fires of stars themselves. Emperor Vex Thul stood on his command bridge, watching his invincible fleet being destroyed by enemies that fought like creatures from another dimension. Human ships moved through gravitational fields that should have crushed them instantly. They fired weapons that channeled exotic matter through artificial wormholes. Most impossibly, they seemed to draw power from the very fabric of space itself. Captain So-Young Lee's vessel engaged 3 Imperial destroyers simultaneously, while maneuvering through Earth's radiation belts in ways that made conventional physics irrelevant. The Soul's Vengeance absorbed energy weapon strikes and converted them into additional power for its own systems. When it returned fire, the alien ship simply disintegrated under the impact of weapons that existed beyond their understanding. The ground assault began as General Hye-jin Choi led liberation forces that emerged from hiding places throughout Earth's major cities. Imperial garrison troops found themselves facing human soldiers equipped with personal weapons that could penetrate their powered armor and energy shields. The aliens discovered that their technological superiority meant nothing against enemies who had been preparing for this specific conflict for decades. Captain Wu Jin-baek coordinated sabotage operations that crippled Imperial command centers across the planet. The alien communication networks that had controlled Earth for 2 years went dark as hidden programs activated in computer systems that human technicians had been quietly modifying since the occupation began. Every Imperial installation found itself isolated and unable to coordinate with other units. Commander Zex Miran attempted to organize a defense of his headquarters, but discovered that his own security systems had been compromised from the beginning. The human technicians who had worked alongside his staff were actually resistance operatives who knew every weakness in alien defensive protocols. His impregnable command bunker became a trap when the people he trusted revealed their true loyalties. The space battle expanded beyond Earth's immediate vicinity as more elements of the Black Fleet revealed themselves throughout the solar system. Commander Jae-sung led formations that had been hiding in the asteroid belt for months, while appearing to be nothing more than mining operations and research stations. His ships emerged from camouflaged facilities that Imperial scans had dismissed as natural rock formations. Dr. Jiho Nam monitored the fleet's performance from his command center as systems that had existed only in theoretical calculations proved themselves in actual combat. Human ships operated in environments that destroyed Imperial vessels instantly. They fought coordinated battles while spread across multiple star systems using communication technologies that transmitted information faster than light itself. The key to human success was not just superior individual technology, but a completely different philosophy of warfare. Imperial forces concentrated their strength at strategic points and relied on overwhelming firepower to crush resistance. Human forces were distributed throughout impossible locations and used the galaxy's most dangerous environments as weapons against their enemies. Dr. Yoon-ji Song's power generation systems allowed human ships to operate indefinitely without refueling, while Imperial vessels found their energy reserves draining rapidly. The aliens had never fought an enemy that could maintain combat operations in the hearts of gas giants or inside the coronas of stars. Their logistics networks were designed for conventional warfare in normal space. Engineer Min Seo-jang's underwater shipyards continued production even during the battle as automated systems. Completed vessels that joined the fight within hours of construction. The Empire faced an enemy that could replace losses faster than they could inflict damage while fighting from positions that were impossible to attack using conventional weapons. Intelligence officer Young Soo-han activated sleeper programs that had been hidden in Imperial communication networks for over a year. The aliens' own ships began receiving false orders and contradictory information that disrupted their coordination and created confusion throughout their command structure. The Empire found itself fighting not just human forces, but their own compromised technology. The battle for Earth lasted only 6 hours, but it transformed the strategic balance of the entire galaxy. When the last Imperial ship was either destroyed or captured, Emperor Vexthul found himself a prisoner aboard Admiral Kim's flagship. The alien ruler who had conquered 17 civilizations was forced to witness the complete destruction of his supposedly invincible fleet. But Earth was only the beginning of humanity's campaign. President Chang Ho-yoon transmitted a message to every Imperial holding within 100 light years announcing that the age of alien domination was ending. The Black Fleet would liberate every world the Empire had conquered and establish a new order based on protection rather than exploitation. But speed of human expansion shocked even Imperial strategists who had never seen military operations conducted on such a scale. Chief Engineer Dong Hyun-shin's mobile shipyards allowed the Black Fleet to construct new vessels while traveling between star systems. Human forces could reinforce themselves during active campaigns using materials captured from defeated enemies. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim led the assault on the Empire's regional capital at Calthera Prime, while Emperor Vexthul was forced to watch from his prison cell. The alien homeworld's massive defense installations had never been seriously challenged in over 1,000 years of Imperial expansion. They lasted less than 3 hours against human weapons that treated conventional shields and armor as minor inconveniences. The psychological impact of humanity's victory spread throughout Imperial space faster than news of military defeats. Species that had submitted to alien rule for centuries began questioning whether the Empire was truly invincible. Resistance movements that had been crushed years earlier started reorganizing as word spread that someone had finally defeated the supposedly unconquerable Caltharian fleet. Captain So-Young Lee commanded liberation operations on worlds where Imperial garrison forces surrendered without fighting, rather than face weapons they could not understand or counter. The speed of human success created a cascade effect as alien morale collapsed and entire sectors declared independence from Imperial authority. The final confrontation took place above the Caltharian homeworld, where the Empire's last major fleet waited in defensive formation around their capital planet. Commander Jae-sung led an assault force that emerged directly from the system's star, using technology that allowed human ships to travel through stellar matter as if it were empty space. Emperor Vex Thul was brought before President Chang Ho Yoon in the command center of the Terra's Fury as the Black Fleet established orbit around Calthera Prime. The alien ruler demanded to know how a primitive species had deceived Imperial intelligence so completely and developed technology that surpassed anything in known galactic civilization. President Chang Ho Yoon explained that humanity's apparent technological limitations had been an elaborate deception maintained for over 50 years. Earth's first detection of alien signals had triggered a massive secret program to develop weapons and defenses against superior forces. Every aspect of human society had been reorganized around the assumption that eventual contact would lead to attempted conquest. The surrender and occupation had been planned from the beginning as the optimal way to gather intelligence about Imperial capabilities while providing cover for final preparations. Humanity had been willing to accept years of slavery and exploitation because they knew it would end with complete victory over their oppressors. Dr. Yoon Ji-song's research had focused specifically on developing technologies that could function in environments where conventional physics suggested operation was impossible. Human ships were built to use the galaxy's most hostile conditions as sources of power and concealment. They turned apparent disadvantages into overwhelming tactical advantages. The establishment of the human hegemony marked the end of Imperial expansion and the beginning of a new galactic order. Admiral Kim became the first supreme commander of combined human and allied forces, while President Yoon headed the civilian authority that would govern liberated worlds until they could establish their own governments. The Black Fleet continued expanding throughout the galaxy, bringing protection to species that had never known freedom from Imperial rule. Dr. Ji-ho Nam's technologies were shared with allied worlds to ensure that no future empire could dominate through superior firepower alone. The age of conquest by overwhelming force was ending. Emperor Vex Thul spent his remaining years as a prisoner studying human psychology and technology while trying to understand how his seemingly invincible empire had been destroyed by a species that had appeared completely helpless. His final writings described humanity as the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced because they had learned to appear weak while growing impossibly strong.